Have you ever been so inspired by a movie or TV design that you wanted to recreate it? Well, I'm doing just that in miniature for the PBS series All Creatures Great and Small. Join the fun as If It Were Mine goes If It Were Minnie. I'm Vicki, and this is Scale Dollhouse. It's set in the 1930s and 40s in the Yorkshire Dales. And over the next few weeks, I'll be turning this Jefferson model dollhouse and these rooms into miniature versions of the rooms on the show. This room becomes the attic bedroom. Here's Siegfried's office, the upstairs hall, the vet exam room, the foyer, the kitchen, the living room, and that's where you come in. You can help me figure out what will go in that space. And there's one more, this room box. It will become housekeeper Mrs. Hall's office, and that's actually what I'm going to show you today. The production designer for the show is Jaqueline Smith, and her website and video tour were very helpful for this project. On the show, you can get to that room and to the kitchen from this breezeway hall, and I would like to create that eventually, but for now, we're just concentrating on this portion. It's sort of an office, sewing room, scullery place where she gets things done. And I found that the vintage-looking wallpaper is from Bradbury & Bradbury. It's called Harriet, and appropriately, it's from the 1930s vintage collection. And Bradbury & Bradbury also makes dollhouse wallpaper, which is really cool. But it doesn't seem like Harriet is part of that collection. But let me know if I'm wrong about that. Okay, here's another view of the room. And you can see she can do some record keeping there and sew and knit, listen to the radio, or she could sit and read her magazines, although we rarely see Mrs. Hall sitting and relaxing. Here she is doing some Christmas planning with Helen and baby Jimmy.
Well done. Had to stop his nibs here from ripping it all to bits.
A little monkey. Oh, perhaps you'd like to help us make paper chains.
Yes, it's about time he made himself useful.
A flour and sugar put aside for the cake, but there's no chance of a Christmas pud. And I'm not convinced by Alice Dinsdale's blackberry mincemeat.
And here's my version. I created this room box in the 1990s. It was a class I took at a miniature shop, and I was going for a garden room design. And so the wallpaper is what really inspired me to do this project because it looks so much like the Bradbury & Bradbury design. Now my room dividers here are blue, and currently on the show they're more green, but they did used to be blue. And I kept mine blue because it just works better here. And then some of the smaller details of the room change over the seasons of the show, and they change things based on the needs of a particular scene. So I just tried to get the feeling right, if not every single detail. The curtains, let me know what you think about the curtains. We made them in the class, and we got to use the pretty pleater, and I was pleased with how they came out. But now they're glued to the wallpaper, so I can't change them without ripping the wallpaper. And I feel like the valance is a little too tall. I could try to cover it or cut it down. I probably should just leave well enough alone. Let's see, the radio I made out of a pencil sharpener. The lampshade is part of a candy box. And the view is actually of La Jolla, California, because I didn't have a postcard of the Yorkshire Dales, but I had one of La Jolla. The desk lamp I made from straws, and her orchids are status blossoms from my yard. I made the shopping trolley and the carpet beater there out of florist's wire. And scattered some gardening supplies around for Mrs. Hall. Meanwhile, this is how the actual dollhouse looks currently. I'm working on the ceilings because back in the 90s, I put a sort of popcorn ceiling effect in there, and it was okay for the 90s, but it doesn't really work for 1930s Britain. So I'm scraping and replastering in there. So there's some furniture moved in, but they haven't hung the curtains or unpacked their dishes yet. Okay, but back to Mrs. Hall's room for a second. I just noticed this recently. I don't know if they just added it this season, but what is it? Is it a call box or like a doorbell system? I don't think I'll bother to add it, but I would like to know if anybody knows what it is. Okay, so to give you some idea of where we're going, I thought you might like to see production designer Jaqueline Smith's mood boards that she used to create the beautiful rooms on the show. As you can see, she was inspired by artist Simon Palmer, and she also said she likes to include little pops of red in the rooms because it kind of brightens up the scene, and it's kind of fun to notice on the show somebody will be wearing like a little red sweater, or you'll see a little red mailbox. I think that's a nice touch. And notice too that her color palette for the kitchen, the top thing she wrote was butter. And the fact that she was inspired by butter just further cemented my love for this show. And on this mood board, you can see the earthy colors and textures and the kind of storybook vintage feel that she wanted to achieve. And she certainly did. And she didn't use these exact samples, but this is the overall feel. She inspired me to create my own board for the rest of the rooms. It's also very nature inspired with earth colors and textures like wool and leather, copper and terracotta. I put honey there instead of butter, but it's the same idea. And of course, I've got to get Tricky the Pekingese involved in there somewhere. So we kick things off with Mrs. Hall's room. I hope you liked it. Stay tuned because next week we'll do Siegfried's office and the apothecary. Either that or the living room. I haven't decided. But meanwhile, we'll also be visiting actress Kristen Wiig's house in Pasadena, which on the outside, it looks like it would be decorated like this, but the inside is a little more unexpected. So I hope you'll come back for that on Saturday. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.